This is Wade, and you are in Wade World. And it's been an interesting start of the day. It's fascinating we start the day at night, at midnight. Who came up with that? But the USA just killed another leader of a foreign country, the Ayatollah of Iran, at the behest of Israel. And the comments on social media, we're going to go to the heart of the internet, the homepage of the internet, Reddit. The comments are pretty interesting. Now, the title of the video is Republicans and Democrats, but this can be extrapolated to any nation where you have just two major parties. Or if you have multiple parties, but nothing ever changes, right? In the United States, the Republicans and Democrats are just two sides of the same poison. If you're a Democrat and your Democrat wins, it's the Jews destroying your nation from within, sucking and leaching out its vitality, the secular Jews. If you are a right Republican wing conservative, it's the religious Jews destroying you by sending you to die in their wars and bankrupting your country, which is a smart strategy. Obviously, Wade has talked about it. But what's sad is that there's so much evil and chaos that this is unfolding in the world. And even Iran knew that there was no point in the United States talking. Like, you can only play the same trick so many times, right? The last year, it's Jewish tricks. And that's what happens when you become a vassal state of Jewish people, because they're girly men, so you will start mimicking their strategies. And their strategy has always been like, oh, yeah, we're negotiating while they're preparing to stab you in the back. The US did this last year, right? They were talking to Iran, and then they basically were just waiting to get the all clear to bomb Iran. So this time they started doing the same thing, and Iranians were like, yeah, we know you're going to attack us, man. So we're also going to play your stupid game. Because the list of demands that the United States came up with was basically just like, we rule you, so you'll do what we tell you to do. So it was going to be unacceptable to any country. And if you're asking what do Iranians have to do with the United States, well, nothing, but the United States is a colony of the Jewish people, just like Israel is like their central hub. So that's what the United States have to do with it. So the United States has helped Israel get its final victim, the leader of the final country standing in the way of it controlling the Middle East, the Ayatollah of Iran. And now, whether you know a lot about him, whether you don't know a lot about him, it's pretty clear over the last couple of years which side the United States has been since the Jewish guys in Israel assassinated JFK. And that's basically been Israel's lapdog. Right, even Lyndon B. Johnson, he looks very Jewy. You call yourself John, son of John, but that doesn't make you anything, right? The Khazars were destroyed for identity theft. And ever since they've adopted Judaism, that's been their number one strategy. Girly men, finance, identity theft. So anyway, we're going to see really quick. And before we switch to the tab, because YouTube sometimes does this, we're going to just go over a brief purview of what this means. So the problem that Israel has is they want to be the only power in the Middle East. They have been smarter than all the other Muslim countries. And again, this is about race. Let's just boil it down. And the fact that they've played themselves closer to Europeans, and Europeans understand that Iranians, even though they're Muslim, they're whiter than the Khazars who are pretending to be Jews in Israel, right? So, Palestinians, look at the photos of Palestinians. Wow, they're white as hell, right? So, Israel has used the United States to destroy all the other countries in their sphere of influence, like Iraq, Syria, Libya, Sudan, Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, right? And only Iran is left. And we went into Iraq in 2001, took over the city of Babylon. You know, invaded them for WMDs, which were all bullshit, peddled by bullshit Israeli lies and intelligence that is basically lies. And we stole a bunch of Sumerian stuff from there, which Wade talked about. Probably found a well preserved body of Gilgamesh. So there's genetic things to do there. But anyway, after all that is done, Iran is the only country left. It's the biggest country left, the biggest threat. All the other Muslim countries in that area, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Oman, are pretty much doing their own thing when it comes to their strategy, which right now basically means leaving Iran alone and allying with Israel. They're probably also all Sunni Muslims, whereas Iran are the Shia Muslims. And again, as Wade keeps reiterating, the race chooses its religion. Shia Muslims, you will see a tendency that Sunni brand of Islam is very popular in brown and darker skinned people on average. And the Shia brand of Islam is very popular with more European featured and light skinned races. So Iran is the last Shiite country remaining. Iraq was one. Syria was one. Libya was one. And also the last one of the last remaining country that doesn't have a Jewish central bank and doesn't have any nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, or other sorts of more dangerous weapons. So North Korea is going to be standing. It's got nuclear weapons, so it can stand. So Iran wanted to pursue nuclear weapons because this is just the truth, right? Israel, a lot of people say strong armed or blackmail the United States into bombing Iran. But apparently, one of the things that Israel said was, if you don't bomb Iran for us, we'll nuke Iran. And the United States president decided, like, oh, well, we can't have that. Why? Why can't you have that? Because you look powerless? Because another country used nuclear weapons and then you can't nuke Israel, right? And then you look like a clown. And you'll be like, oh, America, the great leader. Like that mantle of terror that America has, that the only country to use nukes would have been gone. So maybe it's a strategic thing. So here we are on a day the United States is involved in yet another war, regardless of all the populist things. No more wars. I'm for peace. Guys who are bullshitting their way into power and then taking money from Jewish donors. You know who didn't take money from Jewish donors? Goebbels. Maybe Hitler was financed by some Jewish people, but he basically just took the money and fucked them over, right? So we got a president who didn't want to go into any wars, and now he's like, "Oh, I'm doing it because I feel like doing it." Like, man, you become Jude. You're becoming Jewy. So anyway, the U.S. has assassinated the top leader of Iran. Although these people are high IQ original Aryans, so they do have multiple backup plans for succession, and a lot of the top leadership has been killed because Israel is just. Imagine Israel, right? Forget about Israel. It's just Jews, right? Jews have the resources of most of the European nations under their control, which means intelligence gathering, assessment, money flows into technology like AI and other stuff that can track you, intelligence gathering, data collation, right? So all of these countries and all the Jews in these countries are geared towards one purpose, is to destroy this one country. So if you say Iran doesn't have good intelligence, maybe they don't, maybe they do. But it's also the fact that, all right, you are one person with great intelligence surrounded by 50 people who have, you know, better intelligence. So who's it's just a probability, right? Who's gonna win, who's gonna lose. So now we're gonna go to the comments. The news is hilarious, um, in a dark sort of way. But just the front page of Reddit itself is fantastic. Iran strikes US military bases in Qatar. Hopefully the audio didn't cut out and you're still here. So that's the front page. Reddit, right? The front headline. Iran strikes US military bases in Qatar, Kuwait, and United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei killed. So, why is Iran doing this? You'd be like, why is Iran bombing other Muslim countries? Well, this is something that is strategically taken from the playbook of Israel. So Israel has a nuclear option. They have nuclear missiles. They're the only one who have nuclear power in the Middle East. They have an option called the Samson option. So the Samson option is this. If someone was to destroy Israel completely, right, destroy all the leadership, Israel would launch nuclear missiles not only at its enemies, but also its friends. So at top European cities like Paris, Berlin, Milan, London, Stockholm, and Athens. And what this does is it not only makes their enemies feel pressured to get nuked, but it also makes their friends feel pressured. Like, yo, this guy crazy, man. He keeps bugging me to help him, but if I don't help him, he says he's gonna burn down my house. So that's the situation here. So what Iran is doing right now is somewhat akin to that, in that all of these countries have military bases that are basically American, but they're run for Jewish interests, right, around Iran. So if you look at the map of American military bases around Iran, it's like a bunch of people surrounding one guy and be like, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, and then shouting, hey, look, man, he's touching all of us, right? So we're just surrounding them. And the countries like Bahrain, UAE, and all the other countries mentioned there, they host a lot of these bases. So the rationale that you have Iran deploying is we're going to make life hard for all of you who support the US and Israel. We're also going to make life hard for Israel and the United States. So now when it's just the United States, right? And be like, yeah, we can just Israel can just bully them and US is like, we can go forever because we get bribed or blackmailed or whatever by the Jews. But these other countries, they've got other stuff to do, man. So if you start attacking them as well as the United States and Israel, what they'll do is start is saying, yo, you need to end this war quickly because what the hell is going on? We didn't want to develop nuclear weapons. We have been very peaceful because our agreement with you was that you would provide security and you're not doing jack shit. The United States on behest of Israel, right? And Israel can't defend itself if the United States pulls out. And the United States is spread too thin. Basically, if the United States gets into a war with Iran, which is a huge country, triple 0.5 to zero point 0.6 times the population of Iraq, and way bigger than Afghanistan, where the United States was for 20 years, again, due to Jewish interests, the United States is in a position where if the US helps Israel by getting into a protracted war with Iran, it's finished for the time being. Because we do not have the military capability or the raw materials and manufacturing capability needed to fight other wars that the Jewish people want us to fight, like against China and Russia and maybe the BRICS countries and maybe in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's like a friend who keeps sucking the blood out of you until you basically die of being bloodless. So all these other countries, after getting attacked by Iran, are going to come to the US and say, yo, you need to either wrap this war up quickly or you need to start defending us. Why the hell have we allowed you to have your military bases here? At which point, the US has two choices, right? It can either try to win this war quickly, not going to happen, or it can abandon the bases that it has or just be like, yeah, sorry, we can't defend you. You know, we suckered you, sucker, because we're quasi-Jewy, because our overlords are Jewish. So then these countries will be like, all right, so the American bases are basically useless. They're trying to build an outpost in our country, but they can't really defend us. Also, they can't really handle fighting all of us in a protracted war, and they're severely weakened. Then they'll start going to Russia and China and other countries and being like, hey, what about you? You want to get in on helping us? And those countries will be very happy to step in because they'll be like, yeah, man, we'll help you because we don't like the Jew world order. We don't like digital ID and central bank digital currencies and a dystopia, a transhuman dystopia, which is where girly men like the Jews will always lead to. Right? It's chaos. It's a perversion of masculinity and femininity both. It's a mix. And the probabilities of both of these happening are pretty much right now even. And the bad thing is, both of the results of this situation are pretty terrible. Because if the US decides to get into protracted battle with Iran, the left wing Jews are still there trying to destroy the country by unlimited immigration, unlimited Muslims, and other racial aliens coming in and draining the economy. The right wing Jews are trying to drain the economy again and bankrupt the nation and weaken it. So then, once Iran is gone, they have nukes, they have AI, they are going to be the center of world power. And they'll be like, all right, now we will decide who gets to do what. We've been ruling by proxy for 500 years, and now it's time to step in front. And that's pretty much where they lose because girly men like Jews are inherently unlikable and detestable as rulers. When you see them and you're like, holy, these people rule me? What? These creatures? What? Right? And of course, there are Jews who disagree with Israel, but again, they're still doing Jewy things, like those Hasidic Jews who are like, yo, we disagree with Israel. That's great, bro. If you could stop misguiding others and looting their tax dollars, that would be great too. But you only go halfway. So anyway, the United States is in such a position because of the weakness of the people, because of the comfort that has allowed them to be taken over by this race of very united girly men who just bang each other like, you know, fags. And let's see what else. Let's see the comments. Should be interesting. Happy World Cup and Olympics, folks. Iran will be at the World Cup as well. Knew we were bombing as soon as he assembled the board of peace. Board of peace got board of peace really quickly. It's very interesting in times of real misery. Laughter really helps. So if you have a lot of comedies coming out, a lot of jokes being made, you're probably really living in time of misery. And there was an excellent movie called Look Who's Back, which the Jews funded to make fun of Hitler, right? It's like a German movie, Er ist wieder da, and he comes back and they put him on TV and they're like, oh, this is great, man. It's like a guy looks like Hitler, talks like him, has his charisma. But then the dude starts making points, and the movie backfired on the Jews because people now see the movie and be like, yo, he was right. Because he said that when the Americans and the British and all of Europeans were attacking us in Berlin and Dresden and all the other cities of Germany, we would play light comedies to help uplift the mood. And the kind of garbage I see on TV now, how far you must have fallen to need this kind of entertainment, this mindless entertainment. Like, you should watch the movie or clips from the movie. It's hilarious. Like it just backfired so spectacularly on them. So it's got a happy ending too. That's gonna trigger a lot of people. So we are heading into a future where the Jewish people have basically been the most parasitic race on the planet, and the Europeans have been the most benevolent. So the parasites found the most benevolent and latched onto them, sucked the blood dry, weakened them from within, and weakened them from without. And now the United States has difficult options. A protracted war with Iran is required to destroy Iran. A protracted war with Iran will destroy the United States and Iran, and the only winner will be Israel, who never actually got involved in the protracted war in Iraq or Afghanistan. They didn't send Israeli IDF soldiers there. They're like, yeah, we'll provide you support from behind. Goyim, you dumb Goyim, stupid Goy. Right. So that's option one. The United States destroyed, Iran destroyed, Israel strong. Option two, the United States doesn't get into a protracted war with Iran, and Iran perseveres, right? That leads to a weakening of the United States' status on the world stage, but not its destruction. Israel is still seething. They'll have to take care of their own stuff. And that sets the stage for a real challenge to the Israeli hegemony across the Western world. Right, and this is the West. The sun rises in the east, it sets in the west, and the sun is definitely always setting in the west since the Jews took over. The probability of the first one, Wade would put right now, of the US digging in its heels until it destroys itself, Wade would put it at 33%. The probability of the second amount, where the US is in a short war, it withdraws and loses face but survives, Wade is going to put that at 25%. We're at 58%, right? So what's the 42%? The 42% is the US gets into a longer war than anticipated with Iran. Iran, after that war, still survived, just like the Taliban did. The US loses all of its military bases in the Middle East, at least its importance. The US gets weak, Israel gets stronger, but not the ultimate power in the Middle East, right? And other countries now come in and break up the US hegemony, and through the US hegemony, the hegemony of the Jewish people. This is a pretty bad outcome for pretty much the United States because they lose face, they lose currency power, they lose manpower, they lose the military strength, right? Remember the US just project kidnap your leader, assassinate your leaders. Well, nuclear weapons are proliferating, and you can't really keep bombing people's houses, telling them, I have this bomb, you can't have this bomb. I think you're gonna get this bomb, so I'm gonna bomb your house. You can only go so far before people are like, yo, this asshole is gonna bomb all of our houses, so we need to get this bomb so we can bomb this asshole back. Right? Now, we've covered all three possibilities that come up to 100. And you would say, why don't you have the possibility of Israel being the only superpower in the Middle East, and then the US destroying itself, Iran destroying itself, and pretty much losing everything? Well, if you remember, the first and worst option for the United States is implicit in the fact that Israel will become the power there. Now, the flip side is none of the other major nuclear powers like the Jews. The Russians don't, the Chinese for sure do not, and they understand them immediately, very, very well. If you speak Chinese, you would be amazed at how based the Chinese are on the Jewish question. The North Koreans, even more based, right? India, ambivalent. They're like, I'll kind of support you, bro, but you're a Jew. Well, we're Hindus, right? So, yeah, and we got nukes, so fuck you. Pakistan is going to be race hatred towards Jewish people because, again, they are white people from the Caucasus, not white Western Europeans or white Nordics or white Mediterranean, white Alpine, white Anglo-Saxon, white Slavic, but white Caucasus people, right? And then we're going to have a bunch of other countries with nukes, and we're going to have a collapsing power in the United States with nukes, which is pretty much going to be assured that the United States, instead of just having Jews steal and traded secrets of nuclear technology to Israel and be traitors, the US itself will reach a point where they'll start selling that technology. Remember all the Balkan countries you hear about, Eastern Europe, they're selling the technology, they're selling the guns. Why? Because they were destroyed to such an extent. The average person is like, man, fuck the idea of a country, screw the idea of nation and loyalty. This country sucks, it just wants to tax me, it doesn't do anything for me, so I'm gonna get mine and I'm going to do that. And that is, by the way, the optimum outcome for the Jews of the world. They really would love to balkanize every big country that is not under their control. So their idea is either unite all the small countries into one big Jewish run state, or if it's not a Jewish run state, balkanize it, divide it, and make people fight each other. That's why they keep importing all these racial aliens, religious aliens into America, because America was, still is, homogeneously white and Christian. Right, whatever your opinions on Christianity or white Anglo-Saxon, white Germanic, white Nordic, white Alpine, white Mediterranean might be, this is pretty much a white Anglo-Saxon, Germanic, Christian country. So it has very little ethnic differences. But now, if you're importing a bunch of Somalians, a bunch of Pakistanis, a bunch of Hindus, a bunch of Muslims, a bunch of Chinese, a bunch of Mexicans, racially different, culturally different, and religiously different, you're making sure that once you destroy the country, it can't come back together because then you'll have people who'll be like, yo, we're here now. This is our land. We're not leaving. You're balkanizing it, right? So the opening salvo of the United States in the Iran war might be the last salvo for Israel's plan to have 7 wars in 20 years and have the US and Europeans fight all of them. But it is also the final nail in the coffin if the United States goes too far of what the United States was. And if the United States of America, founded on all these secular principles, ends up destroying itself by easily succumbing to Jewish machinations, that itself puts into question the soundness of the principles that built the United States of America. And you might not like it as an American because that will be questioning your identity, who you are. But then you'll have to start really reviewing your history. Like, why are we called America? It's a Spanish name, but most of the infrastructure was not done by the Spanish or French colonies. It was done by the English, British, Dutch, German colonies, right? Then you might be thinking, why are we called the United States of America? What came before? 13 colonies. Who were in the colonies? They were Dutch, they were German, they were English, British, and French, Spanish, maybe the Portuguese, maybe a couple more. And the Russians had Alaska, which they sold to us. And then you might start looking deeper back into, oh, we all talk about the Magna Carta as like, oh, it's the bedrock of modern Western democracy. Da, 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 da. And then you might look into the Magna Carta and be like, yo, this is just some stupid document about a bunch of pissant lords who were pissed off with their king and wanted to be kings, right? This is never meant for the commoners, and this isn't some giant, grand law that is groundbreaking. In fact, it's kingdom weakening, right? And then you might go further back and realize, like, holy, the best kingdoms in the world, the empires in the world were kingdoms, right? With one fatal flaw that if the king dies, it's up for grabs. So that centralized point of failure, hopefully Iran has negated it. But this is not a bleak message. This is just a message that Wade wants to portray to you. We don't want to go into any other pages today, but the US is completely the lapdog of Israel. It's humiliating, but it's true. Just attacked Iran and killed its supreme leader. Like, the Iranians' hands are tied. This would be akin to somebody assassinating a sitting president of the US or Israel. Imagine the retaliation. You would bomb those people out of existence, right? Of course, not if Israel assassinates a sitting president like they did JFK. Then they just get to slide away, right? And get all their wishes fulfilled because he stood in their way. But they've assassinated the supreme leader of this country, and the only reason, like, the world is not in World War III right now is because they lack the capability. And the Jews in Ukraine, with Zelensky at the head, is keeping Russia occupied, and they're trying to threaten China with Taiwan. But this gambit doesn't last very long, right? This will only last so long as the Russians and the Chinese exercise restraint. Like, the only thing that allows Jews in the world to mess around and do all this stupid shit is all the other reasonable human beings, which also brings us to the question that the weakness of most of humanity and the leaders is reasonableness. If Genghis Khan was the leader of any of these countries, these Jews wouldn't be able to do shit. He disliked them, specifically mentioning them, by the way. But he had no problem taking them over. He had no problem taking over the Khazars who make up the Jews today. So that's the future we are heading towards. Wade has given you the probabilities. Let's see how they play out. And, Wade would always be happy to be wrong if something positive occurs. There's always hope. But for now, Until hope, as of today, keep it cool. Watching Wade, keep it smart. And even in the midst of all this turmoil, enjoy.